My name is David Swanson. I'm an associate member of Veterans for Peace and proud to be a friend and an ally of one of my heroes, Leah Bolger, who went into the super committee and played a significant role not just in communicating to the public what they were doing, but in making sure they failed. Because this was a committee intentionally set up to enact incredibly unpopular policies that failed to come up with the numbers from within its own membership to push those policies through. And the only instance I'm aware of anyone bringing to their faces in person, in a room, the message that was in every poll in every newspaper, the message that was in every street, in every occupied encampment, was this instance when Leah Bolger spoke to them so calmly and eloquently in the face of police harassment in what was called a public hearing. 100 years ago, people used to talk about needing a moral equivalent of war, a way that we could have opportunities to take risk and make sacrifices in solidarity with each other and run our adrenaline without mass murder. This is it. This is the example of what you can do. You can do what Leah Bolger did in the super committee hearing, in which the only witness was there to say that in terms of GDP, our war spending is not so terribly high. The logic of which means, of course, that if the economy grows, we should have more wars and more war spending because we can, which is absolute insanity when our war spending is shooting through the roof by three other measures: real dollars, percentage of government spending, and percentage of global military spending. And no one was taking that message to these people's faces. This was one of us speaking for all of us, speaking for 80% of the public, speaking the message that was in the streets that said, how do you fix the deficit? End the wars, tax the rich. This is the message of the overwhelming supermajority that needed to be brought to the super committee. This was speaking against bribery, which has been legalized. The seats in these hearings overwhelmingly are reserved for the representatives of the corporate lobbies that don't need to speak because they've spoken with their free speech, with their dollars, which has now been equated to speech and a human right for them. This was speaking against the crime of bribery, and it was speaking against the crime of war. Because nowhere in the conversation between the party that wants to leave the poor billionaires alone and go after our Social Security and our health care, and the party that wants to maybe tax the billionaires a little bit if they don't mind, does anybody mention the greater share, over half of the federal discretionary budget that goes to a crime, that goes to funding illegal activity, which has been banned by the Kellogg-Briand Pact, banned in most cases by the UN Charter, and when not declared by the Congress, banned by the US Constitution. This needed to be said. This was a criminal act denouncing a far greater crime. And I'm proud to be here today with, again, one of my heroes and one of the examples we need to follow, Leah Bolger.
Yeah.